All right, this is Euphoria. This is the greatest Western, maybe just the greatest League of Legends. I don't speak a lot of languages, so we're limited. The greatest League of Legends podcast of all time. We're making the statement now. Today is a day for bold statements. I'm Daniel Drakos. This is my co-host, Deficio. And we're available on YouTube, iTunes, and SoundCloud. And our special guest today is none other than the coach of the current second best team after the regular season, potentially the best, depending on playoffs. That is Jakob YamatoCannon Mebdi. Welcome, man.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Because you're wearing a shirt, we decide also to wear shirts, suits.
Also, for context, we're filming this immediately after the tiebreaker day ended. So if anyone slips up, or like stumbles over words. Yeah, like he didn't sleep much, we didn't sleep much. Be patient with us. We might suck today. We'll find out.
It's actually been such a long day. We can definitely reveal that we had to get in pretty early, Drakos and myself and our great producer Phil, because we had some bets we needed to resolve and we had to record some stuff for that. And then we went straight into meetings for the show with the tiebreakers, into rehearsal, into the show, did PGL. Didn't even bother changing after. Same suit.
Well, to be fair, I mean, it's not like YamatoCannon brought an extra pair of clothes to like be in casual wear. And I didn't think about this, so I'm wearing I brought the trashiest tank top I've ever worn to work today because I was like, I do not care. And yeah, it would not have looked good there. But you presumably were up late prepping for these matches.
Yeah, like we were ready to play 4 games last night already. Like we didn't expect Misfits to lose. We didn't expect Schalke to lose. Mm-hmm. It was a party of the good teams losing against teams that had something to prove, I guess. And on our part, in preparation for us to play at 2 a.m., we stayed up really late the night before, especially because we played the last game 2 days in a row. We were ready to play at 2 a.m., so we woke up at 4. And then to reset that and wake up at 11, we have shower times and whatever, and preparation, it was really rough. And my cats were super annoying. I slept like 3 hours. My cats always do this thing where they just play with the curtains. And then when the curtains, I live with the bottom floor, they like show everything. So I'm laying in bed and then I'm just exposed. And that's how they wake me up.
The cats want to expose you to the world.
They just want to
you have a choice.
Me.
Someone's going to take a picture and expose your half-naked body to the world, or you can get up and deal with us.
It's really rough because I place things in front of the curtains, but they are working together. I have 2 cats and they're pushing away the things and then they're just like revealing it as some like theater trick. I'm like this elephant that stands on 2 legs.
Every time you go to sleep,
what if someone is hiding outside who's paid your cats to do it, and he's like
some Schalke or G2 representative?
How do we shut him down? We pay the cats. That's sadly not the craziest thing I've ever heard come out of your mouth.
I mean, it could happen. It could happen. I have 2 things I want to say now. One, I feel horrible because our voices, Drakos, are terrible compared to YamatoCannon
it's
on
true.
the podcast. So we're already in trouble there. And I feel like our shirts, not as cool as what's on yours. It's a bunch of animals.
I don't know what this animal is. I got some like Indian families, I think, and some animals. Yeah.
Wait, you got what's that called? It's not a beaver.
What is what? I think it's a beaver. Maybe it's one of those, with the Zootopia. You remember that scene with the
guy with the slow guy?
Yeah.
Sloth.
Sloth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that it?
And then
I don't know. I can't tell. I couldn't even see that they were animals.
Then there's musical notes.
I didn't even see there were actually humans on it. I thought it was just the sloth right there.
There's musical notes. Do you know the Requiem, Giuseppe Verdi? That's what it is.
Where on earth do you find that kind of shirt?
Haven't we tried this before?
If I told you, I would ruin all the fun.
We tried this the first time he came on. He wouldn't tell us then either. We have to try once a year. One day we'll learn. One day we'll be as fabulous as YamatoCannon.
By the way, the fact you guys wanted to stay up because you thought you had to play at 2, didn't Riot tell you guys that if we had more than 3 tiebreakers or something, it would be on the second day?
More than 2.
I thought,
1, 2,
like the way I understood it was that we would play 3 games. I assumed we would play 3 games, and I thought because it was 3, we ended early. I thought we were going to play it, we were set. And then I didn't want to risk it because in a case where we had to play the same night, I want to be energetic. I don't want to prepare for a scenario where we play the next day. So I thought, because the bracket would be 3 games, I thought we would play no matter what, and then the next day we would play the remainder of the games. That's how I understood. That's how it was in the past. And Maybe I did a mistake.
Yeah, I think you did.
Read the rule book
It's
or
okay.
something.
Like, look, the 3-way tiebreaker and the 4-way tiebreaker rules they're worded to be effective, right? To account for every possible situation, but they are not worded to be easily understood. That was because every year I sit down with people on the stats team to figure out tiebreaker stuff, to like figure out how to present as a host or as whatever for segments. And it's always like, okay, this is what it says, but what does it mean? Like, what actually happens here? So understood that it's a little difficult.
To hire some lawyers or something, you know?
It's done now, and Vitality won anyway, despite apparently not sleeping enough.
That's the training weights.
Like, I didn't sleep enough, but the guys...
Oh, they did?
I did told them you have to, if you are not tired, you go for a jog, no PC, no solo queue, no nothing, no screens. You just bore yourself to sleep, pretty much.
Got it.
You being tired, that's why you picked the puppy, wasn't it? There it is.
So sleepy. Well, we can talk more about the puppy in a second. This morning, as we mentioned, we resolved a bunch of bets. So last week we talked about 3 bets: Memento bet, Nuke Duck bet, and the painting bet. Memento bet I did on Friday. We tried the Zaya Rakan dance that everyone wanted. I'm not strong enough to lift up Memento like this. If you're on YouTube, you can see this, but I'm not strong enough to hold them up in the air. So that failed. So we did the dancing hot dog bet in honor of Denmark, along with apologizing profusely for ever implying that Sweden could even compete.
There we go.
We were finished recording the Nuke Duck bet today. We brought in a special guest DJ to help us out with this one. Not very well known. You guys will find out. But we recorded the video today. It's definitely a banger. And finally, the painting bet was resolved last night. We have the painting
Also
on
a
the
banger.
set. I'm gonna grab it just to share, but it's particularly hilarious.
It's actually a lot of respect to Jesses and Hansama. They stayed very late last night after they'd gone 0-2 this week to finish this painting because they lost the bet, thinking the Misfits could actually win. I think it was 2 weeks ago. And now we have Drakos and myself painted by Hansama and Jesses.
You look jacked, Drakos. Look at those arms.
Yeah, we were not sure.
Holy,
Yeah.
You ate some spinach,
I
man.
can tell. Yeah, he's like, you know what? Too many men want big biceps. Daniel Drakos wants large triceps. Alternatively, my other theory is that I gained 200 pounds in arm weight and then lost 200 pounds in arm weight, and I now have flaps.
Like, it's wizard sleeves, man.
There you go, dude. I'm unstoppable. It's the new male fashion. So the theory here is that it's me in Denmark, which you can see because of the flag, thinking of Deficio. And Deficio is blind in one eye for some reason.
It was a small mistake from Hansama's part, but it just made me look even more badass.
Well, I would watch that anime. With Deficio, with eye problems.
The start of the esports.
I only have one eye. But again, this is what happens when you lose a bet on the Euphoria podcast. And of course, we make sure you actually, do your punishment, unless you are over on the wall of shame. Drakos almost made it to the wall of shame due to the Memento bet, but he did solve it now. Yeah. So YamatoCannon, maybe you will one day be on the wall of shame, because right now you're actually on the wall of winners. On the right side of us on the set, where people can see you are the champion of our sumo tournament. To be fair, you didn't face the toughest opponent yet. That's next time. No, you didn't face it.
That was great. We showed that on air today. Yeah. It took you all of 5 seconds to literally throw him. He was the only person that literally got thrown out of the ring.
Holy. Good times. I'm expecting you guys sending some big guys my way.
We're just Mebdi is working out a lot. We're gonna put Mebdi in the ring.
But he's
gonna be in the ring now.
We're gonna throw in a sub rule where you can elect a champion. I'm gonna be like, hey, so Youngbug, how do you feel about sumo wrestling?
I'll bring my brother, man.
Oh God,
he's bigger than you?
He's way bigger than me.
Damn.
Like, he's same height, but he weighs 120 kilos, and he's a vegan power machine, pretty much. He basically, he's massive. Like, he looks scary.
We're back in school now. When you have to settle an argument, someone will always say, I will bring my brother. And then you lost. There's nothing you can do. Yamato's going to bring his brother to win this.
The age-old one in elementary school, and we didn't want to fight, was my dad could beat up your dad. That's like, what's the point?
My dad is faster than your dad.
Yeah, there's all these different ones. Anyway, we will never beat Yamato. He's a sumo champion for now.
I won't be able to beat Yamato, dude. Yamato is very good at sumo. He lost one round because he didn't understand, and then he just won every single round.
Well, you took a round.
I took a round, and then he figured out, if you just chill and don't try to rush people, you just win slowly. And I was...
So, League of Legends.
Yeah, it's true. So our topics today, for anyone interested, before we get into everything, Vitality, updates on Vitality, LCS Awards, we have some special topics we're going to go through, and a preview of the upcoming quarterfinals. So let's get started with Vitality. You guys secured second today. First thing we got to talk about, Poppy Jungle. It sounded like a big mistake.
How was the comp?
Top.
Like, did you go like Cabochard, you're playing Poppy, and then Cabochard, when they got locked in, and then Cabochard was like, what are you talking about? Like, what's happening?
Yeah, like I just thought, I don't know, it was, as I said, I was really tired. We had to prepare for Schalke, and Schalke he's a Poppy master, right?
That's true.
I did a blunder, and we repaired it on the spot. Kikis played some Poppy in the past when he was a top laner for G2, so lucky us, I guess.
Did you actually think, now that you mentioned the Schalke Poppy, that they should have picked it in the first game? Because they went for that blind Gnar.
Like, we drafted specifically to make sure that our comp is good into Poppy. We made sure we didn't have any dashes, and that was about it.
Right, the counter.
The counter, yes. Like the last time we faced them, we had Dash City. Like we had, trying to remember, we had Zyra Khan that game, and Galio, and like Gragas, and just every champion that needs to dash in. And Poppy just got full value from W, and it was no good.
So this is an interesting draft, and after you guys won just a little bit ago, we got a wonderful, mysterious Cabo tweet, and I want your impression, so I'm just going to read it off verbatim. Cabochard, if you guys don't follow him, he's at Cabochard Law on Twitter. Honestly, all I can say is that we are geniuses. I'm not really allowed to tell you anything else. We were very clear when we made this plan. Nobody could be told exactly what we were hoping to achieve because we plan on doing it again, and we have several other pocket picks. Now, to me, Mr. Cannon, this sounds like the Poppy might not have been an accident.
What are you fishing for?
Isn't this just a copy-paste of the meme?
It is.
Actor?
That is the macro genius.
Yeah, but now it's not macro geniuses. Now it's a pocket pick.
But, I mean, didn't it start with macro?
No, he just said, all I can say is that we are geniuses. I'm not really
he had geniuses in there.
Yeah.
He's memeing.
All right, I'll try. I tried to fish. I didn't get anything. Take it off.
Terrible journalism.
Well, I just want to read the tweet. I thought it was a play on the meme, but I was like, all right, how deep does this go?
I mean, it was definitely the meme, right? Because the meme was like, we are macro geniuses. I can't really say a whole lot, but everything is planned and whatever.
Actually, that game against Splice, we were macro geniuses. But beyond that,
it kind of backfired when it happened.
Went to shit. Yeah, you don't say that you're genius.
Yeah.
Even if Stephen Hawking, when he was alive, I guess he didn't say he was a genius either. You just don't say that you're a genius.
That's kind of thing.
Trouble. People who say that they're geniuses or brag about their IQ, I find on the Twitter, usually do not do very well.
It's very important. It's advice for everyone. Careful with praising yourself. Make sure other people praise you, because then it's great. They can call you a genius. That's awesome. If you do it yourself, there's a giant target on your back, and the moment you fail anything, the Reddit thread is just like macro genius all the way down.
That's a good meme, yeah. And don't do the revert thing as well, like, oh, I'm so bad.
Oh, no, that's boring.
That's like
Find
Facebook.
the middle.
I just won the world final, but you know.
Guys, I'm not really happy with how I performed today, but you know,
like,
things
take that trophy and shut up, man. That's all.
No, don't shut up. Talk trash.
That's true, right?
Learned it.
Trash
Talk
talk.
trash. All right, the other thing I kind of want to talk about, Kikis was obviously the big catalyst that we've seen and we've talked about for the team. I want to talk about what kind of he's done for the environment. We talked to Attila just moments ago on PGL, talking about how he was kind of this instantaneous fit within the team. He was an aggro dude on an already aggro team. How did it feel bringing this guy in and seeing so much immediate success?
It was amazing. Like for me...
No, it's Kikis. Come on, give me that one. I deserve that one.
I feel bad about that.
I'm sorry, it's so bad.
You know...
It's very late.
Is it late? Is it?
Well, I mean,
It's like 5
7
o'clock.
For the record, it is 7 p.m.
yeah,
it's not late.
We have to show up in the morning and do all this stuff.
Yeah, you've spent 10 minutes whining about that. You're done.
Okay.
Okay.
The question was Kikis.
Talking about Kikis, when he first joined the team, what was the experience like?
I was... you know, always when you bring in a new player or bring in a player at all. We done? Yeah?
So hard, I'm sorry.
You know, always.
Yeah, Kikis, you brought him in.
Oh my God,
honeymoon
stop,
phase. Honeymoon phase.
Honeymoon phase. No, that's not what I said.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I'll try one more time. Otherwise, we move on to the next question, I think. Kikis, you know, whenever you bring in a player...
You have to keep a straight face. I can't keep a straight face. Why would you high five me? That was the worst. Okay.
Hey,
Reset.
let's talk about Kikis.
Stop. All right. This is the EUphoria podcast. We're focusing up now. I swear. I hope either people are laughing with us right now when they listen to this, or they're like, these guys are so stupid. Like, this is terrible content. Anyway, Kikis, join the team. Martin, you good now? I'm good now.
I'm good.
All right.
I'm good.
Please. Apologies. We're good.
No. Okay. Oh, yes. Okay. Kikis headline. Kikis, when he came into the team, whenever you bring a player into a new dynamic, I always ask myself the question. I see the possibilities in how, like the best scenarios and also the worst scenario, because you never know. Like you throw in another person into a mix, the dynamic changes completely. And Kikis fulfilled every wish of mine from day one. I had questions in my mind that I needed to answer, and straight off the bat, he answered all of them, and I knew it was a perfect fit.
From a behind the scenes thing, what were some of the questions?
I guess just that, of course, Kikis wasn't active. Like he played in the Polish league and did some minor things. He did the EU Masters, of course, you begin to question like how well will he play? He didn't scrim. How fast can he get into shape? And that was instantaneous. Like he came in, had ideas of what he wanted to play, was very confident in a good way, and at the same time was very social with the guys. I think that's very important. Usually you get a new guy, he comes in, he's a bit quiet, I need to bring him in, make him a part of the group. It's a process, right? It's like Lord of the Flies or something. But in our case, it was instantaneous. It was as if we played for him for a very long time. Socially, he fits, and also in terms of how we want to play the game, he fits perfectly as well. And I think his mindset towards the game and his professionalism is something that he has gathered throughout the years, and it is something that is a massive strength for him as a player.
And I mean, it's paid off in a way that I don't think we expected at all. Even if you had told me that he was clicking behind the scenes and that he was LCS ready, and if you had told me this and he was practicing on your bench and ready to go literally every week of the split, and you would I would never have guessed that it would work out as well as it did. Because even with this culture fit, we didn't see this level really from EU Masters from Kikis. Kikis EU Masters was pretty rough. Olaf games are the ones that people frequently reference, but this level of performance from him has been outstanding. Did you see this in scrims before it was on stage where things were working this well, or were you kind of surprised too when the first few games you played on stage actually worked out pretty well for the team?
It was from day one, from scrims. He really performed fantastically. I don't want to mention who he scrimmed against, but it was the tougher opponents, and he showed up big time, and I was sold right away. I think, it's crazy when you have like a scenario with a team, for example, Misfits or us or some other team that has issues. It might be one issue that makes a lot of things look bad. And I think it can be the scenario for a lot of teams. Sometimes they just come in and all of a sudden they start to click, and it might be just one issue or two issues that you have to solve in order for all the things to fall into place. And I think that's something that I'm looking at, for example, in Misfits' case, maybe it's just one issue. From the inside, it's always hard to predict.
Because I actually think the whole clicking and the synergy part is kind of the fantastic story here. Because like Kikis was always a good player, but it wasn't often I felt like Kikis was like a level above everyone else, and I don't think now necessarily that he's way better than everyone else in the EU LCS despite the success he's showing, but the fact that his play style and how he wants to approach the game just fits in so perfectly with the way Vitality wants to play. Like that is what's actually so special here. And it wasn't even a situation where, Kikis, as you said, has had like 5-6 weeks behind the scene to fit with the team and, see the style from the outside in scrims. No, it's just like you're in, now you're playing, you want to play this aggressive style where you want to invade all the time. Well, here's a mid laner who loves to be able to push and then roam with you. And actually, Jizuke looks way better with Kikis now than he did with Gilius in the start of the split. Also with some of the new champs like Ryze, he can play now. Of course, the Galio is huge for him. Like, these two guys seem to have the same play style. And it's actually it now means that instead of ganking lanes, it's a lot more of ganking the enemy jungler. And when you have full access or full information of where the jungler is, it's way easier for the rest of the team to play aggressive in the laning phase, which has kind of always been a Vitality thing. So it's really interesting just how well, playstyle-wise, he seemed to fit. Also with what you can do in the current meta, where it's not all about late game, which it was in summer spring, right? But now it is a lot about early snowballs. So a lot of things came together, I feel like. Kikis was always a good player. He's a veteran, so he can step into a team. And he fits the play style that Vitality wants from their jungler.
And I do want to say, because like this turnaround was both fantastic in terms of how it worked for your team, but also when we look comparatively to how you were doing beforehand, what makes this so fantastic is that you guys, it felt like you guys were really struggling. We made a rankings award. I think you weren't a part of this one, the most recent one in the background.
I would have put you number one, don't worry, mate.
Sure. Yeah, you can plead innocence there. This was me, Bwipo and Brox, I believe, but there was not a lot of faith in Vitality. People were like, you're done, you're figured out, you know what's going on. Now, regardless of that, I'm curious, without this Kikis change, do you feel like you guys would be in playoffs, let alone securing top 2?
I still think we would be in playoffs. I think the reason we were rated C during this time was because our scrims were not going so well. We were losing a lot of scrims. And also the losses we had looked brutal. Like absolutely brutal. We did, for example, against Splice when we looked like, and people were just saying that we were running it down. Like our competition could do nothing else because we were so far behind. We did a dive on top and we died, 3 people died and then we got double killed on bottom and they were 5k gold ahead instantly. And against Splice, if you are not winning the early game, then you're gonna be in a rough position. And in our case, we were losing side. We had no options besides just running it down mid and engaging with Kled. So our losses looked really rough. It was very similar against Fnatic. Our first loss, they picked a Swain into us. We fell behind early, and then they had a death ball. We had a death ball. Their death ball was way stronger and bigger and just thicker than our death ball. And there was nothing else to do. So I understand from an outside perspective how bad we looked in those losses, but I still think we would manage to reach playoffs based on the performance of the teams that are in the bottom 4.
Now, one of the interesting things that's kind of come out this last week is we got the statement from Gilius regarding his position on the team and his decision to kind of start soliciting other offers. For those of you who haven't read it, it's a twit longer at also I think Gilius Law on Twitter if you guys want to check it out. It's for people who know the Gilius persona, I think it's a surprisingly calm statement. And I think when people called that out, he made it very clear on Twitter with harsher language than I'll use that it wasn't BS, that it wasn't some PR move or any attempt to save face for either himself. I mean,
he made it pretty
Vitality.
clear what happened, right? He said, he didn't fit with the team at the moment. Had different ideas of how to play the game, right? And I believe he said that he actually requested bringing in a sub as well. Is that true, or am I wrong here?
I just had this. I had this thought about Kikis that I wanted to say earlier, and I can't get it out of my head.
Okay, say your Kikis out. We'll get back to Gilius in a second.
We'll get to Gilius in a second, sure. I wanted to mention about Kikis why it meshed so well. I think is because his understanding of what lanes need is above any level of what I've seen from any other jungler that I work with. Like if he sees a matchup, Jizuke says, I pushed this here, I need pressure here, and I need to do this and this at this moment, then he knows and he just adapts very, very fast. And I think in our case, when I present the situation to him, I say, I can pick 3 winning lanes here. I want to make sure that you pressure enemy jungler. He tells me, okay, pick me this and we can do it, So whenever I present a scenario to him, he can make a vision for himself very, very fast. And I think that's what makes him as strong as he is in terms of jungling.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that it has shown in terms of the way that he plays and the way that when you guys do draft winning lanes, he is able to just kind of take over a game, or it looks like he's taking over the game because he's the one that gets to go into the jungle because all your lanes are pushing.
He used to be a laner, right? And I think a lot of the strength comes from there. The first day when we were playing, for example, Jason scrims or something like that, and it was like, okay, we need to play into top heavily. If we don't do it, it's really, really bad. And already when you hear a jungler saying this, it's like, okay, he knows what's up. I didn't even need to say it, And that moment was another confirmation for me that it was a good pickup.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that Gilius kind of called out specifically in the statement was that he did not see eye to eye with the other members of the team, and that, like, for him, different perspective on how to play the game. And it looks like Kikis has lined up a little bit more with your guys' perspective on how to play. But I'm curious from your perspective, were you surprised at all, given the kind of reputation I think your team has for really strong personalities, when Gilius was willing to just say, hey, I don't think I'm the right choice for team, and take a step back? Did that catch you off guard at all?
Well, I think he handled the situation well, for sure. I think, in an ideal world, I've always been telling my players that I would do this for every single position, right? And we were over in Korea, and I believe in the idea of healthy competition. We were at the Afrika Gaming House, and we saw how they had like 4 junglers in the house that were just getting switched out in between, and they were helping each other in a very healthy way for the good of the team. And everyone was aware of this idea and aware of the possibility of this coming in. And the idea of Kikis appeared in front of me because we had some disagreements about how we should play the game. We wanted to play around specific lanes, and we just had different approach in terms of what we wanted to pick in jungle. And I think when Kikis came along, Gilius and Kikis, they were working together. But then, of course, from my point of view, I want to ensure the happiness of every single player. And Gilius felt, Jesus.
Yeah, so this fly is super aggressive.
Bob. It's always here.
We were going to name him.
Right.
He just decided to name it now.
Well, I mean, you can give him a different name.
I was going to name him some other old man name like Herbert. Anyway, this is the EUphoria fly. I apologize.
You should actually call
He's
it Yamato.
very rude. We've never successfully killed him. We've tried many times, so we've just accepted like that he is immortal and that he's just a part of the set at this point. Could also be hundreds of different flies, but there's always one.
We assume this is the one.
He's tiny, he's young.
Yeah.
So
It's been here for a couple of weeks.
He's never seen someone as famous as YamatoCannon. He's very, very keen.
I have no idea what I was saying anymore, man.
You were about to talk about
Talking
Gilius.
about ensuring the happiness of your players.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to ensure the happiness of all of my players. I don't want anyone to be in an environment where they feel uncomfortable. So when Gilius pretty much requested to see if there's any opportunity in another team, I told him straight up, I can do this for you, but if we do this, then there's no going back, because I cannot have an environment where like a player is 95% in or 90% in, or he's not sure of the situation. So I told him straight up, we can look for options, and I will do this for the sake of you, because I could keep him, I could lock him in and do whatever. And the outcome was that he wanted to join the other top teams, and we couldn't reach an agreement with the other teams. I think in the middle of the season it's a very tough thing to do, which I also told Gilius. And after that, the trust is broken, not in a necessarily like I don't trust Gilius kind of thing, but if a player is not 100% committed to the team, then
we see this in sport as well.
Yeah, and you can
there's no turning back, right?
And I think you can see how it would be disruptive to the environment to have a player who I mean, even if he goes, I want to be back, once you kind of open that door and question that trust, it's hard to put that right back.
Pretty much.
Again.
And at the same time, I felt like the dynamic we had, it's always crazy how one player can change, like one person can change the entire dynamic. I think that the point Gilius reached with us as a team was similar to the point I reached with Splice when I parted ways with Splice. I could recognize myself in his position where he's in a place where he doesn't have the trust of everyone at the same point as before, and there's like scars from the past that are staying in, and it's just a very difficult situation to be yourself in. And I think for Gilius, in order for him, the way I saw it, for him to become better as a player, I think it was good for him to take the next step.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm excited to see what he does in the future, because he has had some really high highs in his career, and especially on your team as well, when you guys were stomping.
It's a tough spot to be in now, though, because you leave when the team is struggling a bit, and then the new guy pushes the team to a second place finish, right? Because everyone instantly then look at the jungle change, obviously, and go like, as it's the easy one is like blame Gilius, praise Kikis, even if Gilius Maybe it wasn't the core issue, but he just didn't help with the problems, and Kikis did. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be just his fault at all. Like, a lot of things clearly now clicks for them. But it is a tough spot to be in, and I even saw, like, there was a Reddit thread saying that this is the 4th time Kikis actually replaces Gilius on a team, going all the way back to Challenger Series and so on. And it at some point, it really must suck. You know, if you are Gilius, and
I mean,
you keep
it
seeing
probably
this
sucks
happening
every time, man. It probably sucks. That's probably just a feeling you keep to yourself, right?
But knowing Gilius and his personality, like, he's gonna try and work even harder now to bounce back. And the thing he wants to do the most now is to get back on an LCS team, go against Vitality, beat Kikis and YamatoCannon, and be like, boom, there we go. And then he's moving forward. You know, I can definitely see that as one of his core or clear goals for next year.
I don't see him getting immediately swapped into any of our playoff teams at this
So we assume for next
season.
year.
We'll assume for next year.
There's a block already. You can't switch.
Oh yeah, it's already
right.
You're right. Yeah, so there you go.
The final words I would say is, in regards to Gilius' situation and Vitality, is that he was... the environment was not right for him to improve anymore. I didn't feel like he could improve, and when I reached that point with the player, you have to look at a dynamic change, pretty much.
Can I ask, what's stopping LCS teams at the moment from having 10-man rosters?
I think making sure you have good players. I think staff is already hard to get. You need to have coaches, etc. Like we have a challenger team, right? We have an academy team. We have they're playing in the French league. We have some players. We have unlimited coaching that roster, and we've invested a fair bit into making sure our academy team is good. But even then, it's not at the point where I would want it to be. It's something that is progressing, and I think it will take some time. But I think it's definitely a benefit. Hopefully, coming with franchising, I would love to see some, like the idea I envisioned when I was at what's it called, Player Summit. I envisioned that every team is assigned to a country and they're forced to have a regional team. I think that's something that would be cool, and I think the idea of having an academy team is absolutely amazing. I think it has shown a lot of success over in North America, in Korea as well, in China as well. There's a bunch of subs there. There's just a line of subs for every role, and I think it's just the next step. I think every team needs substitutes. Because
we are the only major region right now here in Europe. I guess maybe we can include LMS without knowing everything about all the rosters there, but we're one of the only regions not really having teams utilizing subs other than, well, Fnatic, as obviously one of the main ones here in Europe. Because, like as you said, you know, it would be the dream for you to have 10 LCS-ready players. Yeah. Kikis was here from the start of the split, so maybe, you know, something different could have happened. Maybe there are other roles for other teams where having a sub here would be crucial. But it makes sense, like, especially with lack of staff, because the more players you have, I mean, the more infrastructure you need to keep control of everything that's going on. So hopefully it does improve in Europe, because it seems to only be a benefit if you have more LCS-ready players and you can actually do a lot of things in terms of practice and so on. So,
and I mean, of course, like we're still struggling to see new talent on a lot of rosters in the EU LCS. So it's hard for me to imagine right now, without some of these newer pipelines that you're envisioning, whether it's academy teams or equivalent or whatever, where we find this new team. I disagree with that
statement.
I think there is new talent coming in, but there's also a ton of recycled talent that you know that if the...
I think the fact that there's only 2 rookies speaks for itself.
I agree for summer split, but for spring we had like an insane amount of new players joining, and very few teams need to make big roster changes between spring and summer. So I think it's only natural, because like if we look at like rookies for a split, I agree we only had a few. If we look at rookies for the year, we had a lot.
Yeah, you're right.
You know?
I didn't think about this.
So to me, I understand if an LCS team says, you know what, we don't have the staff or the budget to have 10 LCS players, so we have to stick with 5, that you don't maybe gamble always on newer players. But I think a lot of teams did do it in spring. I obviously know that, we are recycling some of the old players for sure. But I still think that and I was actually very surprised coming into spring split with the amount of new players joining. And also how excited I was already for like Vitality. with the guys from Giants, who were 3 rookies joining, where like that to me shows the talent factory that Europe is still going full on. Like, and maybe now with, you know, franchising and potentially bigger rosters, you're probably going to see even more rookies just because you have the ability to actually build a bigger roster than now.
I'm convinced.
Yeah, and I'm ready to see it go to the next level, because I think you're right that this year was a good example. I personally still want to see more. I still feel like there's more European talent out there that can be brought up once we have the infrastructure to do so. But I think this year was definitely a step in the right direction. Once long-term partnerships do come around, once we figure out who those teams are, I want to see the 10-man roster, or at least, you know, 2 subs that could legitimately play, unlike the vast majority of the history of subs in EU LCS, which has been guys who, you know, hang out on the bench for maybe play 1 game.
We're trying over at Vitality for sure.
Yeah, because you guys got the academy team already.
Academy going, and you know, it's crazy. Like, you got me thinking about the Exodus. People are afraid of the Exodus. And Sven going over. This is the conversation that I don't hear anymore. And you got me thinking about it. This is
because we were scared.
This is a good year for rookies. What was I saying? 2 rookies in this split speaks for itself. Forget about that.
Because remember, when Sven and Mythi left and Power of Evil left, I was legitimately worried about the level of Europe. And then we won Rift Rivals. Woo woo. Not that that's 100% the clearest indicator of which region is superior, but you also see so much new young talent coming up. Tons of players evolving. The evolution of Caps has been fantastic to watch, right? Rising up as from kind of the disappointing prodigy into everything that he was expected to be. It's a similar story now for Upset, for Attila, for these guys that were promised to be star level 80 carries that had inconsistent performances at the start. So it's cool to see it develop. Our next topic, gentlemen, is, I'm going to call it the EUphoria EU LCS Awards. That's what we're going to call it.
We need some music playing.
We're going to get cheesy game show music.
We need game show music.
May I do this?
You definitely may do that, yes. You can drink from it too if you want.
Yeah, it's not just for display. We could just pass it around and drink from it. That would be,
do it, man.
That'd be so We spent about 2 minutes laughing, so I think it would not be the weirdest thing we've done today. Deficio, do you have any preference on where you want to start? But we got a lot of stuff.
I mean, we got some serious ones. We got some fun ones in there as well.
Okay.
You want serious or fun first?
Let's keep it fun, I guess.
All right, fun first. Now we said they were going to be fun, so if they're not fun, people are going to be super mad at us.
All right.
That might actually be lame.
Most iconic duo, and I'll go first, Vizicachi and Dying in Side Lanes.
That's not the Vizicachi and Poppy.
Cho'Gath, Poppy, Gnar, name a champion where he doesn't die in side lanes.
Yeah,
he's also a god. I'm not going to say that he does not go off and carry tons of games, but if Vizicachi does not get caught at least once in a side lane in a Schalke game, it is not a Vizicachi game as far as I'm concerned.
Yanka's Braum, you know, that's obviously an iconic one right now. I think he misses the Braum because when he played Braum, everything was great. 6-0, you know, fantastic. Everyone
and his mistakes were in a shadow, you know.
Like, no one knows anything.
You screw up on Braum, it's like,
you shielded the wrong way, no problem.
I remember when Funnel came out and they're like, wait, you can gank lanes with Funnel? Jankos is a genius. Like, you get lane priority, you don't just concede the map and wait. Like, minds were blown.
What other iconic duos from this split?
I can't think of anything.
Can be player champion.
Player and champion, like the first thing that came to mind.
Breakers and the bench.
Ooh, sure. That's a pretty iconic duo.
I mean, it's a duo, yeah.
Memento on level 2 ganks.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
classic.
one.
There's, what else?
Rocket and 1-1 record.
Splice and hovering champions.
Yeah, they hover the most.
Yeah.
I said this on cast. We have Diana is hovered by Xerxes.
Yeah.
We have Ari hovered by Kobe. Kissing hovers Zillion
every time.
And Uramne most of the time hovers either Maokai or Rammus or both.
Yeah.
Does Niski not hover anything?
No, he does not.
Good on Niski.
Good on Niski, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't get social pressure.
Peer pressure. He's his own man. Not going to fall for it. Most of the time they do just snap first.
All right, come on. I feel like we're missing out on some iconic duos.
There has to be. I feel like Vizicachi and Dying in a side lane is a great one.
Yeah, that one is fine. Vizicachi and Poppy, he gets one too.
Ooh, H2K and statements about why their team is losing.
Good duo. Kikis and Invading.
Yeah.
That's true. That's a new one, but that's a classic.
I like it.
Shizuken laughing at Anything?
Anything, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that too.
I was coming out before casting, or no, not casting, before doing something yesterday. I forgot what I did yesterday. I was making tea, and I was like trying to squeeze a lemon to it, and I dropped the entire lemon, and it shot up in my face, and like suddenly Jizuke is right next to me, and I went from like alone making my tea, making a mistake, to like everyone watching because Jizuke just explodes immediately with laughter, just like goes off.
He does like the Simpson impression really well.
Oh God.
What's his name now? The bully. Nelson. Yeah, the Nelson laugh. That's definitely what I imagine with Jizuke.
He even did like the pointy
He
finger
did the
once,
one,
like,
yeah, he did it. He did
when I mentioned it, do you know Nelson from Simpsons? He's like, Nelson Mandela? What?
A little different.
Very different. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely different. All
right, well,
I'm sure a lot of fans will have a lot of iconic duos.
Let us know. Hashtag EUphoria Podcast if you guys have any votes for most iconic duo. Well, we'll see what you guys got. Who is the best Braum? Now, Jankos was already mentioned. People asked for the best Braum award when you asked for this earlier. Is Jankos the best Braum? Who's the best Braum?
Hybrid.
Hybrid
is the best Braum.
That's an old one.
I can't forget, like, he got this MVP award when there was like the top 5 players in the row, and then it usually was some phrase like most first bloods in 3 weeks, and then when it came to Hybrid, it was like 2 games on Braum. That was like the amazing thing he did. So Braum, Hybrid, that's the one for me.
All right, you say that one. So nominations will be Jankos and Braum.
Jankos, Hybrid.
Hybrid, Vander and Braum as well, because
Classic.
like he first picks this champion and was 100% win rate until Vitality showed up, and I believe
Smack.
you ruined
How
everything.
dare you? So he's still nominated.
Oh wait, did he play it against H2K? Can you double check that?
I'll find out.
Anyway,
keep thinking of Braum.
He used to have 100% win rate. I think he did have it until today. So I mean that has to be an iconic one as well. I was gonna highlight from Spring Split, Noscaron and Braum.
Yeah, dabbing on people.
When dabbing on people, one tricking Braum. So I think there's actually a few right there. There's a few nominations.
Casting Braum is a cute one because he was like the range support player, and then
against you guys,
5 games of Braum.
5 games of Braum. He early picked it.
There's 2 games on Braum, and then there's 5 games on Braum.
I forgot about the hybrid one. That was a poor choice on our side in terms of graphics.
Those were MVP Daler times, you know.
Dude, that was legit, man. Definitely not the smartest thing we've ever done as a broadcast when we gave him MVP, but I still think it was one of the funniest moments.
Yeah,
watching Reddit explode for the fact we gave him
How
Taylor.
dare you?
I mean, you can't give it to a coach when it's like, yeah, his team won, his players play of the game. Taylor.
I don't know, man. We give out coaches a split. I feel like we can give a coach MVP. We clearly have enough insight to make these decisions. People trust us.
All right, do we have to pick one of the Brahms?
Yeah. So Vander, by the way, played Rakan. He did not lose.
Good. So he was 100% until today when he lost on it. I think I'm going with Jankos and Braum because when he played it, G2 Esports, they were at least tied for best team in Europe.
Oh, true.
Without the Braum, they're down as number 4.
Yeah.
It's quite a jump down.
Yeah. Was,
right.
There's most effective Braum, like in terms of performance. I think that's the G2 award. And then for me, out of memory and a lot of laughs, it's Hybrid Braum.
All right, we're gonna give honorable mention to our boy Hybrid. We'll give it to Jankos for the official Best Braum award. Next up, something a little more serious. The biggest surprise this split. Now it can be a player or a team, but who did you expect to suck that went insane, or who did you expect to be really good that underperformed? What was the biggest surprise for you guys this split? Difficult.
So I will start with H2K. Because I remember the preseason rankings we did for Summer Split. I actually put them like towards the middle after the run they made at the end of spring. They had the 5-game series against you guys as well. No, obviously, I'm sure.
Which, by the way, you almost lost, but Joko leapt into your team like 3 times consecutively.
Oh, yeah.
That was a rough series.
Joko? Shook.
Oh, Shook.
Yeah.
Shook.
Yeah.
Apologies.
I got very confused.
I was confused too.
Yeah.
Shook. Sorry. Yes, apologies.
Joko was in there.
Joko played a lot of Zach. I got confused.
He was on the analyst
on
desk.
Zach. Joko was on the analyst desk. Good guess. Leapt into your team like 3 times with no backup.
It's
and
true.
Gave you guys, I would say gifted you guys a win there in a very tight series.
But we gifted some games that series too.
Yeah.
It's
like
true.
the Olaf Steele. Like how many Barons did we lose that series? It was
Probably every single one at some point.
crazy. Like H2K is a funny pickle because I think their bot lane is good. I think Sheriff and Promiscu are good players. I think Promiscu has a good champion pool. I think his laning is good. I think what's so strange about Shook is that he's the player you bring in for one split and then he just doesn't play good anymore. It's strange.
He's always the fix.
Yeah, he's always like, bring him in, pay him some extra money. Like he was in Copenhagen Wolves at one time, fixing some issues, and you just
when people talk about honeymoon phases, it feels like that term was made for Shook. This guy comes in and the team does look so much better for a short period of time, maybe half a split, maybe a whole split.
He brings the party, everyone is happy, they're having a great time, but then you have to wake up the next day and you feel horrible and it goes downhill.
Yeah,
that's what it feels like.
So you have party Shook versus hangover Shook. Is that what you're telling me?
Maybe. But the reason I had him as a big surprise was just like they went from what I consider a middle of the table team to almost going 0-18. Like they broke the losing streak just before getting to Origin's losing streak of 0-14. So that was something by beating Splice. And then obviously they had that last game against Schalke because, as you said, like they actually have some pretty good players on the lineup.
Like, people are always saying, "Oh, they didn't invest any budget or whatever." I think this is a load of crap. Like they picked up some decent players, and I think when it comes to H2K, I think from what I saw, I felt like their demeanor and how their morale was in general in regards to the team atmosphere. It looked really down early in the split. It felt like they just lost hope early, and they
made a change. Maybe
they were gunning for vacation, pretty much. That's the impression I got from meeting them in the hall. Like in the later parts, they did some good things. I think they did some interesting drafts here and there, and it was scary to play against H2K because it's a team that you don't want to lose against,
That's what we said on broadcast too. We're like, you don't want to lose H2K. Pressure's on you. Pressure is not on H2K.
Because when you have a low amount of wins, it's very easy to remember who lost. 2 wins.
Yeah.
Splicen.
They denied Schalke second place.
Yeah, thank you. God bless H2K. This is, for me, I think H2K was the perfect H2K for me.
To bring on some other biggest surprises, like Reckless getting benched.
I was going to say that one.
Obviously was one of them. I actually think now we had the H2K one. Cadril is a guy who's been getting nonstop praise from the H2K people. This was a guy who left the LCS in spring and people laughed at him on the way out because he was a mid laner that became a jungler who played 2 games, and those games was bad. Like, he did not look great. And people were like, what is happening? And then he got benched for Shook. And it was like, I for a moment thought back then, like, this is how you, like, your career can almost end in terms of reputation based on what just happened.
That is the absolute worst way to go out. Because you remember, I believe it was his mid lane game where it was the Malzahar mid, and he, like, one of his first games, they were winning the game. He flashed for the wall, he ulties, he cancels his
It was against us.
It was against you. And look, like, obviously it's funny now, but I feel really bad for that dude because if from that event into playing jungle into leaving a team, like, shout out to H2K for giving him another chance because he's shown us so much more, but like that is a career killer right there in terms of public perception at least.
And I think now, at least behind the scenes among pros and so on, like there's going to be a lot of positive things to say about Cadril from the guys he played with on H2K. So I think that was probably not the one most people will talk about, but to me that was actually a huge surprise to see that success story.
I think it was extra tough for him as well because it was the story of H2K, how they were bad. They brought himself in Shook and all of a sudden they started winning. At the same time with Cadril, like H2K should have won against Misfits. Should have won against G2 as well. Like they lost off of silly, stupid Nash's steals. Like LeBlanc stealing Baron. Like that's not how you should win. These two should have lost. And Misfits as well. They stole Nash. You can give Cadril some breathing room because he's not the most experienced jungler. But I think he did some good things. And I think his transition is something that is working out for him. Usually when a player switches roles, you're like, good luck. But it worked out.
Kikis also a big surprise.
People swapping to jungle seems to be a positive. You take your laner mechanics, learn how to play a strategic game, and you just become a super jungler.
I mean, it's working. So the Kikis one as well.
Yeah.
I remember before you joined, I was asked the question, will Vitality make playoffs? And we had to do like these top 6 predictions. I think it was like week 5 or something. and I believe I put you number 6, but said, you know what, if there's one team dropping out, it's Vitality.
Okay.
And I think I had Rocket just underneath you, if I remember 100% correctly. And I actually felt pretty confident that Vitality would just be a middle of the pack, maybe even outside of top 6 team at that point. But then when Kikis joins, the whole thing just changes. And like seeing Kikis return as a jungler to do what he's doing now with Vitality, like that is something no one could predict, and definitely one of the biggest surprises as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think that wins that award. I think.
Yeah.
It probably needs to win it. Yeah.
Speaking of that, we have 2 more. I was going to do biggest upset, but I think if anyone says anything other than H2K Schalke, they're probably wrong. Is there any other contenders other than Splice beating Team Liquid at Rift Rivals? Shout out to you, Splice. That was great.
That was actually a huge upset. That was probably the biggest upset.
But actually, yeah, you just have to give it to that one. I was going to say just EU LCS, but God bless you, Splice. You saved Europe. Thank you.
We had another one.
H2K Splice?
That one was also an upset. You guys versus Fnatic.
Yeah, I
with
guess
Kikis.
at the point in time, it was an upset. But then looking at our
trajectory it kind of changed. Yeah.
It has to be Splice versus Team Liquid.
All right, Splice versus Team Liquid it is. Good on you, Splice. We still appreciate that. Good luck in playoffs. All right, so we got upset out of the way. But the one I wanted to get into was our MVP for EUphoria. Now, the votes, I believe, cast end of today, end of tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Okay. Wait, really? I didn't vote.
No, you have to.
You have to vote.
Tomorrow.
You have till tomorrow. It got extended because of tiebreakers.
Yeah.
Check your email. I don't know how it works for teams. You guys might have one vote as a team.
I don't like that people get the freaking, what's it called? The Google Doc before the last weekend is over.
No, but you don't have to vote.
But people do anyway.
But that's that
but that's trashy.
Okay, so I got to jump in here real quick because I used to be the one responsible for the votings. Mm-hmm. And what YamatoCannon just said there, first with him saying, wait, I forgot to vote, or I didn't vote yet already.
I didn't know. I didn't know. Like I thought about it.
But this goes hand in hand with him saying, you getting mad about why they send the doc early. Yeah. This is why they send the doc early, because most people don't pay attention.
We send it out to the teams. We inform the managers and we say, hey, can you make sure that there's one for the players where they vote together and there's one for the coach, so you get two votes coming back from each team. And we very specifically tell them, hey, you have a week now. Can we make sure that people know so they fill them out? It takes 5 minutes, if you don't want to spend time on it. And what always ended up happening when I used to do it was I would sit on the last day, like a few hours before the deadline, and I would look at the list of who actually responded. And it would be all the casters. Maybe one guy forgot, but generally it would be all the casters, all the journalists. Then it would be couple of the players and like 2 of the coaches. And I'll just be like, what's happening here? And I have to start sitting and writing to every coach separately. And they would be like, what? What do you mean? I'm like, come on. Please.
The moral of the story is, if you can pass this responsibility off to someone else, do it, because it's exactly what Deficio did. Medic is now in charge of MVP voting, organizing, and getting trophies cool. So shout out to Medic for taking that responsibility.
I also know that the managers actually do tell their teams. The teams just forget it because a couple of days later, they just never think about it again. And then
because you want to wait.
I thought about it. And I thought, oh, good on ELCS. They're going to send it out after the split is over. So that was my mindset.
The deadline was set for today, before the tiebreaker. So the whole point was you were supposed to vote after the last games, obviously. We just wanted to give you extra time to think about it.
Yeah.
And now you can decide who's your MVP.
Yeah, so
should we just do one without caps? Like
No. So
MVP.
this is the thing, right? This is why I brought this one up as a potential topic. Because I think caps was the easy bet, but Vedius has been saying this to me. And he's planted this seed in my mind that Kikis might be MVP. Caps took a team full of already good players, and he was the best player on a very good team, and he made a lot of stuff happen. Kikis took a middle-of-the-pack team and got them second place. Now, you can say that every player on your team was a factor of that for sure, but in terms of the MVP definition of one player defining a team, you changed one player, and you went from middle of the pack to top of the table. That is the clearest case for MVP I can see, just in terms of like easy outside perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I think, even in the game against Fnatic, like Broxa, I think is considered the best jungler in Europe. And what he did to Broxa is something that has never happened to him before. And I think Kikis against the junglers that were considered the best, what he did to them was absolutely beautiful. Like yesterday against Jankos was really dirty what he did to him.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm a fan of that one.
It's hard. It's hard. So the other argument, though, is that I still do think that Caps is, in terms of best individual player, Caps is the best individual player in EU LCS. There's no doubt in my mind that is the truth. But it depends on your MVP definition. Right?
That's the thing. People typically want to ask the question of, if you remove this player from the team and replace him with someone else, how much different would it look? And I mean, obviously with the Kikis case, if you took Kikis out of Vitality now, it would definitely make you guys way worse. Yep. And it would really hurt how you guys are finding success at the moment. So in terms of just value there, obviously people make a case for him not playing enough games, but like it honestly is in a lot of ways with Caps and Kikis up there, like the race might be closer than people expect. The thing about Caps though is just like, he's been the best player in Europe this split. He gets all the attention on Fnatic, and he has to carry with that, with whatever resources they're pouring towards him. And he's done it so often this split.
Yeah. Even last split, I think he was
even
the
last
best player.
split, yeah.
Yeah, and we were watching a clip earlier today on PGL where he was playing LeBlanc.
He was making all the calls.
And he was
fight.
literally calling every cooldown. He's literally telling Hylissang on Rakan, hey, come shield me, get close to me. Ezreal's going to E. Ezreal doesn't E, but this man is already thinking one step ahead as he's shot calling, as he's killing one person with LeBlanc, flashing forward, going back to the distortion. He's saying, block this skill shot that's maybe not available, maybe is, but be ready for that.
He's playing Ezreal for the other guy better than he's...
Right, yeah. He actually could have eat over and maybe killed him.
It's crazy. I think, the biggest question is, like, Fnatic, they have insane coordination with jungle support and how they impact mid lane.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And who is the reason behind that? Is it Caps that is just coordinating everything? Is he the one that is saying, I need pressure at this time, we can do this and this, when you come out of base, are we doing this and this? That's a big question mark. Because I think if Caps is the one being the captain of the ship and taking those decisions and clearly explaining to his support and jungle what he needs from them, then I think for sure he deserves the MVP, no question. If Broxa and Hylissang are insane enough to know around mid lane exactly when they need to be there and how to pressure into mid, I think that's also depending on where this synergy comes from. That's the biggest question for me.
Yeah, and that's obviously why with MVP it's so hard, because we don't have a lot of insight into who's actually making the calls, who is the reason for the success, other than what we see in the game. And that's why typically MVP from the outside, it's easier to just look at who is the best performing player and then say, well, he's the best performing player, he's doing it in the most important games, he then becomes the MVP based on that. And I mean, it's like Caps is going to be the heavy favorites to win this title. And I mean, you even started this segment by saying, can we do this without Caps? Yeah. Because it felt so obvious.
And the interesting thing is that the advantage that Kikis has coming into this, just as a potential candidate, is that unlike any other team where you're not 100% sure who's shot calling or doing what.
You just saw the change, yeah.
You saw the change, right? Even if Kikis literally shows up and is doing nothing, right? And you can obviously tell us more, you can give us more insight than that, but people see the change and there's a clear before and after. You don't get that before and after when a team doesn't actually make a roster swap, right? Because Caps could leave and Fnatic could fall apart in an instant. We wouldn't know, but a lot of people might just assume that if you put in another mechanically good mid laner, that yes, they might drop maybe one rank in the standings, but they'd still be a top team. So it's a difficult position to be in, for sure.
Mm-hmm, definitely. I mean, Caps has insane players around him, which makes it a lot easier for him as well. But I love the fact that in close games, I feel like when you watch Fnatic play, you always tell yourself, okay, what's Caps going to do now?
Yeah.
And especially now that Reckless has not been playing for most of the split, and when he has been playing now, he's been more on like Israel and these kind of things. Like, it goes just straight to Caps. It's the same at MSI. And every time he got a kill as a fan backstage doing the international games, like I was like, okay, Caps got a kill. I'm actually feeling pretty good now about Fnatic's chances of winning this game.
Yeah.
That's so rare. It was how I used to feel about Perks, sometimes with G2, where it was like, okay, when he played at MSI against SKT and they got to the final, it was like, okay, yes, they got Perks ahead in the mid lane. Something is going to happen now. Where I feel like Perks is he's more focused on the entire team, where Caps is still all about him. So he's going to be my MVP vote. But I think Kick is like, he's making a case for it.
Yeah.
For sure. because it's super interesting.
Further gets to further the case today by playing, a surprise jungle poppy game, showing up.
Sure. I mean, other people also make cases for Broxah, Hillesang, these kind of players.
Yeah.
Nukeduck on Schalke. If you ignore maybe the last couple of games here, because he didn't have the greatest ending to the split, but like doing a lot of it, he did look very good.
I think Nukeduck, like I've worked with him so many times. Like I worked with him in Vitality, in Rocket, in Lemon Dogs, in TT Dragons, in Team Solo Mebdi. Like
I'm glad you said Team Solo Mebdi.
I've known him.
Favorite esports story.
Like I've known him I've met his mother. Like I've known him for so long, and his mother came with him at the first LAN because we're both like 16. That's why.
Fair.
And it was, knowing Nukeduck for so long, when he's in a position, I think he's always been a fantastic player. Like as a mid laner, he's always been rated very highly by everyone because the people that face him in the 1v1, they know that he's skilled. Like he's the type of player that really goes deep into a matchup and tries to learn it 100% every angle. And when you have this type of player, then as a coach, you're happy, right? Jizuki is very similar as well. He's very precise in what he needs to learn and what he needs to do. And Nukeduck has always been that, and I think that's why all the mid lanes have respected him. I think in a team environment, his weakness has always been being consistent in the way he communicates. Because I think when it comes to Nukeduck, if he can take charge and he's playing, for example, Dakali against us, he knows how to direct 4 players. When it was Lemon Dog times, he was playing Fizz and all these assassins, Zed, etc., Ari as well, Swain against Faker. There was a bunch of things.
The Swain.
But when he was playing those assassins and he got ahead, he also took charge. He was the guy who was leading Lemon Dogs to second place finish in the split and eventually to Worlds, right? And I think when Nukeduck is put in a good draft situation and he's ahead, he can always communicate. And I think the lack of consistency has been his biggest weakness for all of the years in terms of communication only. But play-wise, if you put him in a 1v1 tournament, I think he's a great player for that. And mechanically and teamfight-wise, he's always been pristine. This is something that I would never question when it comes to Nukeduck.
I think there's a lot of good options. It's hard for me to decide. I haven't made a decision. Interesting to hear Cavs. Interesting to hear what everyone votes for when we see the votes come out later. We'll end the awards there because there is one more thing that I want to talk about today, and that is the quarterfinals coming up. It feels appropriate that we start with Splice Schalke, since we've already mentioned Nukeduck here. Now, earlier today on PGL, or for those of you who haven't watched, this is the PGL happening after this Sunday show. We already talked a little bit about the matchups, and from what we heard from Attila, from you, Deficio, and from Sheepy was that mostly it was expected for this to be a pretty Schalke favored matchup from what you've seen so far. Now, admittedly, a statement could come out, people could get sick, everything could fall apart before this is released. But assuming most of the information stays the same, it seems like you were very much in the Schalke camp over the Splice camp. Kind of run us through that. I
mean, I have to base a lot of it on just what we've seen on stage the last couple of weeks. It's been hard to get super excited about Splice because while I actually think if you look at the second half, they obviously did a lot better than in the first half of the split. I think they're like a fine team. They're not a great team. They're not a terrible team. They're fine. They haven't really found something other than trying to go to late game as like really the big play style. They tried to shift it up against Giants in the very last game of the split where they did play a lot more aggressive in the early game, which was good to see, but that was obviously against Giants, so it's a lot easier to do than against some of the playoff teams. And I have too many question marks regarding how Splice are going to play, because even in the late game, while I think that's their strength, I actually don't think they are better than a lot of the other teams at playing late game. I think the Schalke game is an example. They just played against Schalke recently. They got to 40 minutes, and Schalke won the late game team fights, except for the one at the mid-inhib. And it was one of those where I was like, okay. And then Splice against Fnatic also got to full late game, played some really good team fights, still ended up losing some of the crucial ones in the end. So I'm not seeing the CLG.EU of old days where I knew if it was past 35 minutes, they would just win, which is why I struggle to fully identify like the key strength of the team that they have over the other playoff teams. And that's why, unless they improve a lot during the week's practice, I think Schalke are the favorites.
I can make an argument for Splice. I think I wouldn't favor Schalke as heavily as everyone does. I think if we base it off of performance in regular split, for sure, Schalke is the easy favorite. But the main thing for me is, in the past, some of the players on Schalke, when games are important or in best of 5 scenarios, they tend to play worse. This is something that I keep in mind. I also am looking at some of the things Schalke have been doing, like you see amazing playing the same champions over and over. I think Xerxes as a jungler is someone that can devour someone like Amazing if he's put in the right scenario. I think he can bring new champion picks, and if you can put Xerxes in the situation where he was in the past, I can remember when he was playing Unicorns of Love, he was like playing like Warwick and running in your jungle and taking your shit. And I was like, what do we do? He's just ahead of the curve. And I think Xerxes is a very, very smart player. And I think he could be the factor that could change everything for Splice. But of course, Xerxes' performance has been inconsistent. So it's not something that I would put my money on. But I think if Splice were to take it, is if their experience carries weight, and also at the same time if Xerxes can perform. Because I think top lane situation, Odoamne versus Poppy, what's his name?
Vizcachi, Poppy, fine.
Poppy's fair.
Call him F too.
I think that matchup is irrelevant. I think you have two players that are very similar. Mid lane, I would favor Nuktak. Xerxes, I think he has room to do great things. And I think the laning of Splice bot lane has improved immensely this split. Because last split, I thought it was horrible. Like in the finals that we played against them, Attila and Jack Troll were like 50 CS ahead on average at 15 minutes against their laning. And they were really heavily relying on late game. But I think their bot lane laning has improved immense. And I think if they were to win, I think it's because of experience in best of 5s. They seem to be very calm and collected. And also if Xerxes can pop off.
So let's say Xerxes pops off, but Schalke preserved the form that they've kept from regular season. Do you think Xerxes alone is enough of a factor to take Schalke even down at their peak, or are you still kind of banking on the fact that Schalke has historically struggled when it comes to playing in best of 5s, dealing with that pressure on stage?
I think also Niski is interesting. You know, I didn't mention Niski at all, but I think the performance he had against us and onwards, he's been playing amazing. I think really it's a mid laner that has gone under the radar for a lot of people because of his poor performance maybe in Spring Split in the beginning. But I think he really took shape. And then the question is, how good can Niski play in the games that are important? In the fight for third place against Splice, Niski was the most important player by far. And this is another important matchup. And Niski could be the player that pops off in important games. I remember over in North America as well when he played TSM, and it was a question of him going further to his team going to playoffs, I think. I might be wrong.
Yeah, I believe it was the highest super
and they beat
match.
TSM, and Niski was performing amazingly. And that's what brought him all the hype in order for him to get picked up by Splice. So I think Xerxes and Niski, I think I wouldn't underestimate them.
I'm glad you bring up Niski, because when you mentioned Xerxes as kind of the answer, to me it was actually going to be Niski. Also because if he wins mid lane against Nuktak, we know it's going to hurt Schalke a lot. And Schalke, they don't get ahead in the side lanes, in the laning phase. It's really only built around where Amazing decides to go and if Nuktak can do well in the laning phase for early advantages. And then they're trying to use globals a lot. They're obviously trying like certain lane swaps here and there, but Chachi doesn't really solo kill the enemy top laner anymore. That doesn't happen. and Vander and Upset tend to draft pretty passive lanes.
Who gets Braum?
Yeah, exactly. Who gets Braum, and then that's about it. So I feel like the mid lane matchup, which then also means the jungler automatically, is going to be insane. And Niski in the third place game was the best player on the Rift, which was a huge surprise during that split because he hadn't had the best performances overall. And he became a huge carry.
Yeah, it was a really disappointing split, I would say, up until those playoffs where he did prove himself.
Based on what we've seen during the split, I'm saying 3-1 Schalke for this one. But Splice keep telling everyone that they are best of 5 team. They got third place, beating Vitality last split. I want to see them prove that and then give us a super competitive series.
All right, old man Martin, get some more water. There you go. All right, Yamato, 3-1, 3-0. How you feeling? 3-2. Where do you see it going? You've given some avenues to Splice to win out, which I do like, but how much faith do you actually have in those avenues?
I think the 2v2 of Splice in mid lane can be really good. It can be really good against. My clearest memory of Splice playing the best was when they, of course, they beat us in the best of 5, and that was Xerxes camping the shit out of mid lane, and you could view Schalke the exact same way. Exactly. We've reached the conclusion that bot lane is Ezreal Braum most of the time, Poppy in top lane or whatever, Cho'Gath or whatever can build armor and MMR and health pretty much.
Just be engaged.
And then there's the 2v2 mid lane, and I think Schalke in jungle have shown a very small champion pool, and I think that's something that is abusable. So
it's going to be interesting.
I think 3-2 Splice.
Oh, you're calling the Splice already?
3-2
predicting the change.
No, I like it. I like that it's divided. I want to see more. I think Schalke's performance under pressure is a big question mark, and which version of Xerxes we see on the Rift is always curious to me.
Also, we're playing on 8.16.
It's true.
I believe so.
People might not have to ban Aatrox anymore.
I haven't seen how big the patch is just yet, but the Xerxes point made earlier, like, he was the guy who brought out Trundle last playoffs. Yep. When no one even knew Trundle could function at that point. It was huge. Like, you guys...
Now it's getting nerfed.
Now it's getting nerfed. You know, we come full circle. But
took a year.
I think that quarterfinal is actually going to be insane. I'm really looking forward to the Splice Schalke one.
I like that one too. Misfits G2, our other quarterfinal, equally insane?
Depends on Misfits, man.
I think it can be. It can be absolutely crazy. Yep. I think there is a world where Misfits snap out of it. But there's also a world where they don't, and it's a quick 3-0, and we go home and eat chicken buzz.
Waiting
now,
for
look, I love chicken buzz as much as any man at this table, but I also love 5-game series, so it's a hard call for me.
Misfits.
Okay, so talk to me. Why don't we just explain, because you have some pretty strong thoughts on them. I know you've been pretty disappointed with this team because you've always kind of had high expectations for them. Run us through kind of the outline or the TLDR of what you feel like is going wrong for this team right now, outside of their obviously very atrocious record in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this quite often, but from the outside, what I'm seeing at least is we had a team who won in the first half through the same kind of play style. Most of it was a lot of like focus around bottom side. Maxlow was the the player with the second highest experience difference in the entire league. He was only behind Perks because Perks was in funnel and doing really well. So Maxlow was like outpacing, especially because him and Mickey could always go together into enemy jungle, get vision, get camps, and like really just kind of choke you out very quickly. And they had really good early games. When they swapped to top side instead, I think probably they did it to try and play more styles, which made sense. It completely backfired because EUphoria to me doesn't feel like the guy, which is weird to say because he's so talented, but he doesn't seem like the guy who will solo carry the game if you give him resources. And I don't know then if it's that a mindset thing or whatever, but they were hesitating a lot when he was the split pusher and when he was the fed guy, and they had to play around him specifically. The teams looked really, really lost in the late game. And that's why they went back to playing early game around bot side now, which is what we saw here in week 9. But both games, and you guys did it with Vitality here, where you had the Olaf jungle path to the bottom side and at the Draven pick 4 Attila, and you guys just tower dove them like at level 4. And you're like, we know if we kill this bot lane, we're good. Because right now, Misfits have not shown that they can actually win games from other lanes than the bot side. And that really seems to have hurt them, that both teams actually in this week targeted the bottom lane. We had the Twisted Fate from Rocket, also just going down bot lane and like tower diving the moment he could.
Holy Tam.
The Tam Kens from Noscarum was perfect.
That was juicy.
Well, anyway, so like that's kind of been the problem, right? They went back to what used to work, but now teams figured out how to deal with it, so they shut it down. So now Misfits are stuck this week kind of figuring out, do we want to stick to the old style that doesn't seem to work anymore, or do we go back to the top lane carry style that never really worked for us? Like, I think they're in a tough spot. I know they feel confident that they have the tools to fix this. I trust a lot in their coaching staff as well. I just need to see it before I can realistically predict Misfits to win this quarterfinal.
Right now, Yamato, do you think it is that simple? As that people figured out that Misfits pretty much have to play around bot most of the time, and if you shut down bot lane, you just win the game against this team?
Well, it worked for us. Like, that's the plan we came in with, pretty much. Like, you guys read it, so I'm not gonna bullshit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think right now the top teams are playing through mid lane. That's how you have to play the game. And I think Misfits is a team that doesn't. And I think when you don't, you have no chance against a team that actually does. And I think Misfits, they were getting a lot of victories against teams that really lack structure. And I think that's something that they do well. They bring structure to the table. They're like, okay, we have a vision plan. We're going to push out here. We're going to go together. We're going to put wards and play for this objective. I think there's always a sense of, when you look at Misfits play, you're like, okay, they're playing for this now. I can see that. And I think that's why they get a lot of victories in the beginning of splits. Because I think what it comes down to, I don't think their spring split start was that bad either. I think I remember them being even score with us when they faced us, and we were both 4-0, 4-0, something like that, or 5-0 or something.
They had a pretty good start. I remember that. I remember their win against Fnatic in the late game with Hans Sammer, taking down Fnatic.
So I think it comes down to the same thing again. It's like they pop off because they have structure, and then it's just not enough because all the other teams obtain structure within the split. Like for us, we have clear structure in the game. I think our macro is looking 10 times better than it did in the beginning. I think a million times better. And I think this is something that just takes longer for other teams. And I think Misfits don't have the kind of... I think what comes after structure is the willingness to be creative and take risks that might be... that you have to play mechanically perfect in order to succeed in. And I think this is the philosophy I've pushed from the get-go with Vitality, that we try, and if we fail, we will learn from it. Because sometimes we do dives that went to shit, and we've really, really worked hard to perfect this, and we are not perfect yet, but we are working hard with this idea. I think Misfits, they only have structure. There's no creativity, nothing else. And I think when teams get better, they get worse.
It's tough, at least. I don't know if they have the tools to suddenly change up a lot of things. But I will say, in terms of the matchup against G2, if there's one team in playoffs who will most likely not punish you bot lane, I think it is G2, if you look at this quarterfinal specifically, because they have heavily favored playing around the solo laners, which could play into Misfits' advantage. Senkuk's job might be to make sure he doesn't actually get run over by a Jankos Perks combination while they try and win on the bottom side of the map. I can see that as a way for them to play the game. The problem is, obviously, G2 will have watched these games and will see that same thing. And if they drafted Tam Kench and Varus bot lane, I'm not sure if you can even run over that bot lane as Misfits, or if you just end up going even.
It's a pretty safe bot lane.
It's probably as safe as it gets, right? So yeah, I think it's going to be super interesting. I think Misfits have good players, but need to find a winning recipe now.
And it's tough because I know it's also late, so it's part of the reason why the energy's slowly dropping. When we talk about Misfits, I felt like it especially dropped because it just feels a little bit like a funeral already for this team. The weeks have been so rough for them. But I think everybody, assuming you don't have to play against them, everybody is hoping that they kind of pick it up and that they find that stride, because we've seen the highs for this team are always really exciting to watch, really interesting to see. But yeah, a lot of sad things to hear, lacking the creativity, not knowing how they need to play the game or how to keep up with a lot of these other top teams. That's pretty tough. On the opposite side, G2.
Well, you had some Misfits points.
Yeah. I just wanted to add to Misfits. I think Senkuk's, I work with Senkuk's, and I think he's a very, very smart player. Like, he's the type of player that if you needed to play through mid lane, he's the person that could coordinate that. And I think Senkuk's in playoff situations, like the last time Splice faced off G2, Senkuk's was crazy good. He was playing fantastically good against Perks, and Perks went home and took that to heart. Like, he was shook by that performance and his own performance, and he was disappointed by himself at that time. So I think Senkux is a player that can really pop up in serious situations. I think when I remember when we were at the World Championship and he was playing against, for example, Crown mid lane, Bjergsen mid lane, he was doing amazing things.
Yeah, one or two of those Casio games, I think it was, where he just went insane.
Like he was crazy good in important clutch games. So I think Senkux might be something like if Misfits are playing up to standard in a competitive fashion against G2, I think Senkux might be a way in. Maxwell has had good performances in the past, but generally speaking, to end the note for myself on Misfits, I think it's don't put your money on Misfits.
If they win mid lane, they win the series.
Sure.
Calling it right now.
Yeah, I mean,
because they're not going to lose bot lane, and they're not going to lose top. That's probably a tank v tank.
I mean, but asking them to win mid lane versus Perks, yes, Jankos is struggling a little bit, but versus Perks just still feels really tough.
A little bit is
if you win that 2v2, like if Maxwell is playing up till like his level, the level he showed in the start of the split, that 2v2 mid lane for Misfits can be very strong, and again, because that's the lane where G2 might try and target them. If they can win that on Misfits side, I think they win the series.
Yeah.
How much do you believe that that's going to happen? What would your prediction be for this series?
I mean, based on the track record of the second half, it's not great. Like based on that, 80% G2, 20% Misfits, but I just
looking for like 3-1, 3-2, but the 80-20 is pretty harsh too. That's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I actually really hope Misfits performs super well because he gives us such a competitive playoff. But as Yamato said, like right now, you're not putting your money on Misfits because then you're basing it on just hope that they actually fix these things, which we have no clue if they will. So I'm on a G2 win on that one.
Yeah. Me too. I'm worried about Jankos though. I think, yesterday he got destroyed by Kikis. Like destroyed is not even a good enough word to describe it. And I think Jankos, he practiced a lot of funnel, and when funnel disappeared, it was it's a tough sell to say that Jankos is the Jankos that we expect. Mm-hmm. And I think when we're talking in terms of the 2v2 mid lane, I think the jungler needs to perform. And I think eyes on Perks and Jankos, how well they can put it together.
I want to give a quick shout out to Jankos specifically. I know he's struggling in some of these games, but the way he actually deals with it, I think is super cool. It's not a player who right now just tilts and like drags his team down with him after the game. From what we've seen, like he went out publicly, he said, you know what, this game was completely on me. But right after that, like it seemed like a guy who was ready to just play today. He even suggested being on PGL and everything, despite, how poorly it's been for him. And a lot of players decline, obviously, which is perfectly fine because they're like, no, I don't want to talk about this. I feel terrible. Yeah. He was like, you know what? Like I played for so many years. I know what's going wrong and you know what to do next. So I think actually he's showing that he's a mature player. And like, I think he will bounce back, but sure, he's probably the player you're looking at in this series, and to say right he has a poor series, it's really going to hurt G2.
All right, we've talked about both of them. There's one thing missing. We missed it in our last episode.
Yeah, and people got very mad.
People were very upset. We're sorry.
What did you miss?
We missed the bet. We forgot to do a bet with Reckless.
Yeah.
Oh. We need to do a bet with you, though.
I've been a lot of clicks.
We've done Sumo Tournament. We've done Chicken Buzz. But Chicken Buzz was a weak bet back in the era of weak bets. We've since repeatedly upped the ante. So put your creative hats on or whatever the equivalent is. First, we need a subject, which I would guess. Did you predict Splice in the end?
You said Splice.
Nice.
Why should I bet on Splice?
You just did. You said 3-2 Splice.
Yeah, but let's make it more interesting.
No, I mean,
you want Vitality in the final?
Yeah, Vitality in the final. You down for that bet?
That feels like it's not in our favor.
It's not in our favor. But
I'll bet on the side of Vitality, sure.
It's definitely not in our favor, but I can go with the Vitality not making finals for the sake of it.
All right.
Okay, I can give you guys something good.
What do you got?
I can wear a tracksuit for the third place match.
Are you allowed to do that?
I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure you have to wear a suit.
Tracksuit.
Oh.
As much as I want to see you,
yeah, we don't control the
infamous tracksuit mafia on stage.
Cut that part, yeah.
Okay. So the tracksuit is fantastic. Ooh.
See, now we should figure out the bet punishment before we go live.
Yeah, that's the thing is guys are now joining the brainstorm process. So maybe this will be cut out. We'll figure it out momentarily. I'm getting a nod from the producer. You might not see this at home. Okay, but real talk. We got to figure this out. We need good stakes.
I can also do the splice thing. That's fine.
Which
it's more recent.
Oh no! It's not the stakes. It's what the punishment is. I don't care about this.
I can do the splice stakes too. I don't mind.
Either way, we just need a punishment. We're musical now. If we could do if Vitality doesn't make worlds.
It could be a punishment for Yamato is he has to wear the most boring suit ever on stage, and if he loses, or if you win. Wait, so I guess the punishment for him if he loses has to be needs to wear the most boring suit ever.
Can you guys be my bodyguards? Like you just have shades and you just say nothing and walk next to me?
Oh my God. Can we film? I'd do that.
When can we do that?
We can do
in Madrid when we walk in.
Do it in Madrid before. Yeah, sure. But we could do it before a game. We could record it and we could have like Lore or someone come up for an interview and be like push him aside, like, no, like, who are you? Excuse me, no. Ladies and gentlemen, you may have noticed that there was a slight cut here, and that's because we had no idea what to bet. Now, as an update, the stakes are Vitality making the finals. So, if Vitality make the finals, Yamato wins. If they don't, me and Deficio win. The punishment is waiter for a day. So, if Vitality make the finals, Deficio and I will be Yamato's personal butlers.
In Madrid.
We will service anything he needs, food, water, massage,
feet.
I won't.
We'll figure. Okay, I don't know
I'll
about
serve
feet.
your feet, but I might massage your feet.
We'll figure it out. Anyway, waiter, butler for a day. Now the opposite is true. If they do not make it to the finals, then we're gonna get some quality time with Mr. Mebdi here.
We're gonna get some good camera shots.
Feed us some grapes. Think Rome style. He's just gonna lower them into our mouth.
In the caster room before the finals cast.
That's how we're gonna warm up.
With us.
Come in and get a nice hot towel from him.
You know what? You're actually gonna get to do my tie as well. Put that on, make sure I look good. I don't want to have to touch a thing myself.
Okay.
It's gonna be all
you know, the more trash you talk, the more ideas he's gonna get to get you back if we're wrong.
I am so sad we don't get to add the part of him wearing the duck tie, but I accept it.
The duck tie is terrible.
I really want YamatoCannon to wear it on
The
there,
punishment is too great.
but it's okay.
Next year, maybe.
Next year. So, waiter for a day. Vitality making the final, yes or no?
That's the question. And this has, of course, been episode 10 of season 2 of the EUphoria podcast. Thank you, Yamato, for coming on, talking about everything from your team to quarterfinals to LCS Awards. You can find us on YouTube, iTunes.
You keep saying that at the end, but people already know.
Or SoundCloud.
The entire
or maybe they
episode.
skip just for the bet. You can find us in 3 different places. You can listen to us on your commute. You could listen to us anywhere. Now, keep in mind, over the rest of the week, we're going to have lots of bet videos coming out. The Noobtuck one is my favorite, but the Memento one
insane.
and the Hansama one are also super great.
Yes.
Hansama/Jezus. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, we will see you guys next week as we get further and further and look at some semifinals coming up.